Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Country Club Leaders Podcast. My name is Leo McMahon, and I'm your host. Today, we have Joe Felder with us today. Joe was Director of Golf at the Griff Harris Golf Course in Greenwich, Connecticut for over 30 years. Welcome, Joe.
Welcome. Thank you, Leo. Glad to be on.
Glad you could make it. Joe, we'd like to get right into things here. Can you tell us about your journey through the golf business?
I just recently retired about a year and a half ago. And while retiring, they did a couple of articles about me. And one guy asked me a great question, and that was there any event in your life that changed your life that you remember? And I said to him, yes, I thought about this a while. And the day I got cut from the baseball team in ninth grade, from St. John the Baptist High School, because the very next day was golf tryouts, and my father gave me a ladies' bag with ladies' clubs in it, and he said, go qualify for the golf team. And I was like, okay, Dad, but I'm not going to make it. I could shoot 90, He goes, just go shoot 90 and see what happens. And I don't know how I did it, but I shot 86, and then Larry Fury befriended me the first day, and he had long hair. He was a hippie, and I was like mesmerized by the guy. And he said, Joe, why don't you try this with your grip and do this, blah blah. And then I shot 86, and then I shot 84, and then I just started making putts. So that day changed my life, and I went to a college. You and I went to St. Bernard College. I only went 1 year. I didn't really get along with the coach, and I guess you got along with the coach a little bit better, but I went 1 year on a scholarship, and I'll never forget, in 1973, I was the first one of the Felder D'Onofrio clan who ever went on a plane, a commercial plane, and flew down to Alabama. And Coach Judge Graft, Judge Graft or Kraft, or what was his name?
Yeah.
Graft Hart, yeah. He picked me up at the airport, and I couldn't hear. My ears were so clogged, and I said to him, I go, excuse me, Judge, I can't hear you. So he goes, okay, pitch your head here, boom, 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 and he whacked my head, and all of a sudden my ears clinged up, and then he said, okay, blah, 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 we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You got to try to qualify. There's going to be 6 qualifiers that are going to make it. There's 16 people trying out, and whoever gets the scholarship, wins the scholarship. And it was a crazy guy, Brian Haggerty. I don't know if he was still there when you were there, but
no.
Haggerty was a senior at the time, and he took me under his wing in the practice round, and he started telling me about grain and don't think everything else is BS. And anyway, long story short, I shot like 77, 72, which I couldn't believe I shot in those days. And I got a scholarship. So I went there for 1 year.
Nice.
And I got out. I got out in a year, and I was like 11th, 10th or 11th in the scoring average. And my father, who never wanted me to go to college, wouldn't give me a nickel to go to college, wouldn't donate a dollar to the cause because he said I was stupid going to college. Yes, he didn't believe in it. He wanted me to go to trade school. So anyway, we don't donate money, and a guy named Fowler or something like that got the varsity letter, and they gave me a JV letter, and everybody was in an uproar. And I never forget Lenny Lukens and John Barry, Coach Franey. Joe won 2 tournaments in JV, and they moved up the how do you not put him in varsity? You know what I mean? And anyway, I said, screw it. And I was 18 years old, and I knew nothing about the papers I signed. And I never realized that when I signed my scholarship paper, they had all the rights to what I was able to do. And
really?
Yeah, I never knew that until, I found out about it the next day when I called up the coach of Bucknell. Bucknell gave me a scholarship also, and it was in Pennsylvania. And I just called him. I don't know what made me call him up, but I had his number, and I called him and said, hey, I'm thinking of transferring to your school, blah, blah, blah. And he says, well, let me get back to you. Is this a good number? And that was that payphone in the dorm. I said, well, You could try it. Somebody will get me, but no one had a cell phone, and they was too drunk to pick up the phone, so it was crazy. But anyway, an hour and 20 minutes later, Coach Franey calls me into his office and says, "I control your ass, and you're gonna go."
Really?
And he goes, "I'm not letting you go, and you're going on your own, and then you can't play golf. I'm gonna make sure that they have to sit you down 1 year." And I say, "Hey, Coach, do whatever you want. I'm not coming back here. I'm not coming back. I'm cleaning
Right.
out my stuff. I'm not coming back." So, needless to say, so now I'm screwed. And so I went home, and I was looking around for jobs, and I wound up building swimming pools in the Hamptons. And the famous pool that we built was the one in the Hamptons, backyard, and they put the Budweiser label in the bottom of it. Remember the commercial? And there was a Budweiser label. And I went there with this guy that was absolutely crazy. He picked me up in a TR6. He was high as a kite every day, and this guy was moving tractors. He was great. He was great. Now we're driving, and we got to be done, and I don't know if, well, I don't think you were in college at that time because you were 1 year behind me. And there was a Long Island intercollegiate golf tournament in Rock Hill, right? And I had 3 days off, and I said, I'm going to go play. I'm just going to go play. I haven't played a couple of times. I probably played with you or somebody else a couple of times, and I went out there and we shot 76 in the first, 77, whatever, in the first round, and the next round was really windy, and we played on Timber Point, West Havel. We played in the wind, and a lot of these guys just weren't used to it. And I think I shot 73 or something like that and tied for first. And my playoff was with Frank Darby. I never forgot it. And the coach of St. John's University, where Darby went, was following him around. And, I made a putt to tie. He made a putt to tie. We went 5 holes at Rock Hill, and he finally made a birdie, and he beat me. So we're walking in, and, I shook his hand. We're walking in with the coach, and he says to the coach, "Coach, this guy is a really good guy. He's a really good player. He's played around." And I had played with Frank a couple of other times, and I think he went to a Catholic high school like myself. And the coach goes, "Hey, you interested? I'll give you a scholarship." And I told him the story about Franny. He goes, "Okay, we're not going to use you the first year." But I said, "Coach, I don't have a lot of money. My father," he goes, "I'll take care of everything." And
Wow.
he goes, he went in, and he gave me a half scholarship because that's what he had. And then he gave me a loan with it was 0.5 or 1% interest. And he gave me the loan, and he said, "Look, don't worry about that." I mean, it might have been 2,000-3,000 at the time. I don't even know how much it was. I forgot. And what happened is that winter, that semester, the first semester in September, my dad got real sick. He had a brain tumor, and then he couldn't work. And it wasn't like it was now. You know what I mean? There was a little disability, but I had to support him. So I went back into the coach. I said, "Coach, my parents don't have any money, and can I get another loan? I'm going to take out another loan, and I'll pay it off." And he gave me another loan for 2,000 or 3,000. I paid the mortgage, and did everything I can for my dad. And I graduated. In my graduation, my senior year in high school, I got engaged, and it was great. And I promised the girl that I would give up golf because I tried to qualify for the U.S. Open and all these other things, and I couldn't make. I only made the Met Amateur and the Met something else I made. I forget. Long Island Amateur. That's what it was. But I couldn't get to the big stuff. And then she goes, "Well, if you can't get to the big stuff now, you're not going to get." I said, "Okay, you're right. We're going to get engaged, and I'll find a job." And I found this job. And if you think back to 1978, and if you think about what your parents made or what your brothers made, I made $27,000 in 8 months working for this company. And I mean, it's a long story, so I won't get into it. But anyway, I one of my last weeks at the company, I got invited from the guy that started a small company named Radio Shack, and we were selling chrome-plated phones. So AT&T lost their lawsuit as being the only person to sell phones, and so they lost their thing, and we made these phones in Brentwood, and it was they covered the cases, blah blah blah, and I had all of this publicity, and it's a whole long thing. And the guy at Radio Shack says, "Okay, meet me at Hop Hog Country Club, the site of the famous Leo McMahon over one winter hit it over a pond because it was frozen over, and it knocked it up on the green." I said, "Leo, where the hell are you hitting this one?" He goes, "I'm going for the freaking green." And he hit it on into the. I go, "How did you?" He goes, "Oh, I figured it was frozen. It's freezing out." So I was like, "Holy God!" So we get on the first tee in Hop Hog, and the guy says, "Hey, what do you want to play for?" I said, "Hey, bud, I'll play for anything you want." I go, "Look, I really haven't played much, so I'm probably a 2 or 4 handicap." And he goes, "Whatever." He goes, give me 4 aside." I said, "Okay, I'll give you 4 aside. What do you want to?" And we started playing for 10, 10, 20, $2. And I was like, "Whoa, this is a nice game." And I beat him for $98. I never forget. And I'm trying to sell him phones, right?
Nice. Nice.
And I beat him for $98. And he goes, "I am so impressed with you. You didn't fall over. You wouldn't let me win." I go, "Bud, we're playing for cash." If we were playing for nothing, I might have let you win. But I don't want to lose any money, And he goes, "Well, if you're going to work that hard, you're going to work that hard for me." And he signed a contract for $15,000 to buy the phones, and I got once they signed the contract, I got the money. You know what I mean? So I had credit of $1,500, and I told my boss at the time, I said, "Hey, it was a Thursday." I said, "Look, I'm taking Friday and Saturday. I'm taking Wednesday. I took Thursday and Friday off." And I can't think of the name of it. It's not Rock Hill, but it was one of the county courses out east a little bit. Not Bergen Point was east and west, but this was east. And there was a Calcutta. Remember, we used to play in those Calcuttas. We put up $25 or whatever it was, and we played. And I shot 69, and I was like, "Whoa, this is great!" So I won a couple $100 in the Calcutta. And then I go back the next day, and the guy goes, "Hey, we're playing over at the West Sayville tomorrow. Are you going to play?" I go, "Yeah, why not? I got $300. You know what I mean? I'll play." And then I shot 70 or 71, and I won again. So Freddie Gipp, and I think I don't know if Charlie Bernard was still working there or he quit. And Freddie Gipp, he played that day in the Calcutta. And he saw me play, and he goes, "Joe," he goes, "you're playing great." He goes, "Your swing is really good, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Okay, Fred." And he goes, "Why don't," now I made $27,000. He goes, "Why don't you take a job with me as an assistant pro? I'll get you into the PGA." And I go, "Well, Fred, how much am I going to make?" He goes, "You're going to make $125 a week. And all you can get off the first tee, because everybody tipped you to get out earlier, and whatever lessons you get." And he goes, "You probably give a couple thousand in lessons." I said, "Couple thousand?" I said, "Fred, I just made 27,000. He goes, and I bought that car. Remember, I had a white Thunderbird with the green interior.
Right.
You drove around in it with Scrappy Dog and stuff like that. So anyway, long story short, I go, "Fred, let me think it over." And I thought it over, and I go, "You know what? This is my only chance." And I took the job. I gave the guy 2 weeks notice. He let me go in a week because we just wanted to tidy up stuff, and I knew I had some money coming in, and I figured I'd sell the car, so I sold the car, and Freddie sold me his car, that convertible Delta 88 for like $400, and the rest is history. I never looked back, and a golf pro, and I played at your club, Island Hills, with the and you couldn't play because I was now a pro, right? So they had the pro-am at Island Hills, and I forget Tommy Clark. I forget who I played with, Tommy Clark, or those guys, and I was low pro, and I made $100 low pro.
First place.
first place, first PGA event, first pro. I went to Governor's Pub. I put the $100 bill on the bar, and somebody drove me home and put the money in my pocket, and I had $96 in my pocket. They only charged me for 2 drinks, and I said, I love this being a pro. This is great.
Oh boy.
Anyway, I worked for Freddie, and then I got and then Freddie goes, okay, a guy I know, Chuck Diedman, is the pro at Pelham Country Club, and now you need to get out of here. You need to get out of here, see the private course, because you're gonna be a great private course guy. You got a personality. And I went in for the interview, and I got the job for Chuck Diedman. And you were out to the house I rented. Remember, the living room in that place was like about 40 feet wide. Oh God, it was in New Rochelle. I mean, we had
High class.
Oh man, it was high class. It was beautiful. And I was working there the first year, and the Sunrise Pro-Am, I forget what it was called. I think maybe the Sunrise Pro-Am, the Sable Pro-Am that they had, Sunrise, And I got driven out with these Japanese guys that were in shipping, and they made a fortune. They were making millions in shipping. And we went out in a big limo, so I show up in a limo, and I had my Uncle John, God rest his soul, caddying for me, and I don't know who else was caddying, maybe his son or something like that. And we had 2 caddies, and oh God, it was great. I mean, great to be back. And then Kuahara and this Sugahara, I never forget their last names, and they said, we want to sponsor you on the tour. I go, well, I don't go right on the tour. They go, I don't go on the tour. There's a Club Pro Series. And you were part of another story when we were out at that diner in Sayville, and somebody totaled my car. You remember with Scrappy Dog? I think you came to take me home, or Scrappy Dog to my house, and my brother. Oh God, we're sitting in there. He goes, I just bought a brand new Tercel, Toyota Tercel. And somebody totaled this guy's Tercel. That was when I was working for Fred, and I go, oh. So anyway, I was playing racquetball with you most of the winter. So then we played some golf, and then I got the luckiest break in my life going to work for Billy Mitchell. And that was a blast. And he said to me, he goes, this is the creed of a private course. From April 1st to November 1st, 24 hours a day, you're working as a golf professional. You don't get a day off. Everybody was working. Whatever, you take a day off, in the winter. You don't need a day off. I go, what does that mean? I want Mondays off to play. Well, that's working, so you could go in that, I go, what about if I qualify for tournament? He goes, you go in that, but if you play in the morning, you have to come back in the afternoon. And I swore, if you play in the afternoon, you come in the morning. I said, Billy, who does that? Because Chuck, if you play. So that was my first motto when I got my head pro job. I turned that around, and if a guy had qualified for something, not the qualifier, but if he qualified, he got the time off, so. And I worked for Billy. He goes, okay, now the assistants meeting is April 17th. You're going to the Towers, and you're going to run for president of the assistants. I go, Billy, I barely know guys. He goes, don't worry, Charlie Robeson's going to handle everything. And so I was going up for the presidency over Bruce Zabriskie. So he made his speech. He goes, hi, I'm Bruce Zabriskie, and I'd like to be your president of the Assistants Association. And I get up there and I go, hey guys, blah, 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 So, and then Bruce had no chance. It was like almost unanimous. Lou DeMuria and Freddie voted for him. And anyway, so I became the assistant, and that's when I started the assistants raffle. So that was one of the biggest purses in the PGA of America's. It was the biggest purse for assistants for the PGA, and that was great. So I did that, and then we put a constitution together, and And then I was involved, you know what I mean? I went to some board meetings as the assistant president. Billy, got me started with the board meetings. And once I became the head pro, he put me on the board 92, which was three at 90, 91. Yeah, I went on in 92 and I served 30 years on the board for the PGA. Attended numerous numerous meetings there. And then I turned down probably 5 jobs because, I was making $50,000 a year at Innis Arden. Plus they gave me money to go away. And you played with me down there and I was a money maker. I mean, I made $20,000 a year playing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I mean, who had a better job than that? And I had 5 months off.
Right.
So I was like, okay, this is perfect.
Yeah, I remember one time I went to visit you one Sunday night at Innis Arden, and I think I got there like 8:30 at night, and your whole staff, Billy's whole staff, was down in some room re-gripping clubs at like 8:30 night on a Sunday night.
Yeah, I know. That was Billy. He used to make me, obviously it was way before computers. And remember the chits that you had, to sign up people for, merchandise and stuff. And he used to have me the end of the month, like today. I'd be over his house. Okay, he goes, I'll take you out for dinner, which was a pizza or Chinese food, And when he was married, before he got divorced, we'd spread all the chits out on the living room floor, and we have to like walk around them, and then add them up, and then oh my god, and then I had to drive home at 1:00 in the morning, and he didn't drink, and I didn't have a drink the whole night, and I was so pissed. I was like, oh, so
well,
anyway,
it's nice that you worked for Billy. Yeah, Billy took you under his wing and he showed you the ropes. That's great.
Yeah, he showed me the ropes, and I had a couple of big interviews that at Pelham. I went back there, so that was 8 years later because 1989 the job opened up, and it was between me, Diffley, and Greg Hurd, and Diffley wasn't a PGA member yet, and they just liked Diffley because he had some connections, into Pelham. So, and then I said, hey guys, he's not a PGA member. He's just going to be a rookie PGA member, blah, blah, blah. And I've been a PGA member for 7-8 years and blah, blah, blah.
So how did you get the job at Griff Harris? How'd that all come about?
Well, so I didn't get the Pelham job because I asked for too much money. And knowing that they had the money because there was a big surge, and I still knew some of the members there quite well. And the guy said, he goes, they took me to dinner that night after my interview and said, okay, Joe, blah, blah, blah. What do you think this? What do you think that? And then they called me up the next day and they said, Joe, we thought it over, still we're just getting some money now. I don't want to spend it. Then we're going to give me like $40,000, $50,000 salary. I go, guys,
right.
That's what I'm making at Innis Arden. Here's my W-2. I showed him.
Right.
I go, why would I leave there having 5 months off? I mean, I'd love to be a head pro, but
right.
Come on, you can't. I need $75,000, and probably the going rate. Billy was probably making 110 or 20 at the time, given salary and stuff like that. But and they wouldn't give me the 25,000, and they gave it to Diffley, and hence he made it a nice job. So that was good.
A good decision on your part. Good decision on your part, because some guys want to be a head pro so bad they'll take anything, which
I wasn't
taking guns.
Yeah, I was taking it. I wasn't taking it. So what happened was, I had a couple of interviews. Charlie said, "Look, you don't want this job, but go in there and push your salary and push what you know." And I'll just tell you one story that happened in '89. Also, was that the Canyon Club? I don't know if you remember it. It was Mitsubishi or one of those, big Japanese firms owned it. They put it, and it was up and down hills. It was the worst golf course. I mean, I remember playing it with Billy, and it was the worst golf course you could see. So Charlie says, okay, Joe, there's one guy, it's the manager. You're going to go interview with the manager, try to get the job up to something, see what you can do. I don't even know if they're going to offer it, just check it out. So I go into the manager, blah, blah, blah. I'm one of the last interviews because, however it worked out. He knew I was president and whatever, and he knew I was a good player because I won the pro lady there, and so he goes, okay, I know you can play, I know you can this, that, and the other thing, and he goes, well, you're going to make some money at this place. I go, oh yeah, really? He goes, well, the salary, I'll never forget this, is 40. Now it's a 3 o'clock in the afternoon interview. 3 o'clock. Picture this, right? So the guy goes, well, you're going to get $40,000 in salary from the club here. He goes, and you're going to do $100,000 in the shop. Really, you're going to do 100, and you're going to make 40% of that. So it's an $80,000 job. I said, really? I go, hey, that's unbelievable. I go, hey, look, come here to the window. I go, sir, is that a wedding out there? He goes, yeah, it's a wedding. It's coming in now. It's a 3:30 wedding, blah, blah. I go, that's a wedding. I go, I always was liking the weddings at Innis Arden. He goes, I said, I'd like to work here and maybe help out with the weddings and stuff like that. I go, so what are you charging per person in the weddings? And he goes, oh, we're charging $69, whatever it was, $69, for per person. I go, $69. I said, wow, that's not a. I said, I could do it for $40, for $39.95. He goes, and I could make you some really money. He goes, Joe, how do you figure that? It's $69 plus that. I go, well, how do you figure out I'm going to make 40% on merchandise? And the guy shut right up. I
Oh,
never,
man.
I never forgot that. And Charlie comes out to see me with Billy because he was at Waikago at the time. And he goes and gives me a hug. He goes, Joe, this guy's head was spinning after you. That was great.
That
was
is a
great.
good story. And then,
So then I came down to the Griff, and now it's back to a public course, and I'm getting interviewed, and it was me, Tony Shadavere, basically in the finals. That was going to be it. He was working, I think, for Lloyd Monroe at the I don't know, maybe the guy at Bedford. I don't know where he was. And we all looked at it, and I said, this is a sleeper job. You know what I mean? They were going to take some of the cart revenue because Nick Roberto was giving them $1 a cart. $1 per 18 or 9 holes for a cart. And they were going to raise it to $2 for 9 and 3 and then $4 for 18. And Nick said, no way. He goes, we're going to give you a raise, blah, blah, blah. And Nick said, no, he doesn't want it. Okay, so whatever it was going to be, right? So I knew this. I went to interview, and the guy that was my original boss, he was an ex-Marine, and he was a tough guy, And he used to drink a lot, and I knew the guy used to come to Innis Arden to play in member guest, and he would get toasted, So I'd met him a few times, and then he quit drinking, and he was probably sober for 5 years before, but I knew him. I knew him from Innis Arden and a couple of my Goombas. And John Butkins was Boyd Greenwich, so he could have gone anywhere he wanted, but he was working as the head pro at Millbrook. And he was just started off there. He probably was working as head pro for, 4 or 5 years, and they were going to offer him the Griff job. Well, then it was Bruce Golf Course, right? So John Buskins says, no, just pick Joe Felder. He's the best. You're going to love him, blah, blah, blah. So I went in and went to a couple of interviews with a bunch of the people. And then I had an interview with the mayor, and he ultimately was making the decision. So the mayor said to me, he goes, okay, Joe, blah, blah, blah. I know about you, blah, blah, blah. I know you're good. You're going to have to give me lessons. I said, I'll give you lessons, whatever you want. Anytime, like whatever you want. Whatever you want, you have. He goes, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I said, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make this a public course with a private course mentality. He goes, what? Really? I go, yeah. I go, look, and I've just had 10 years at a private courses. I grew up in a public course. I played at a public course. I said, but I'm going to put what I know from a private, I'm going to spruce this place right up. And everybody's going to be proud to play here. And he goes, okay, and then that sealed the deal. And they went in and they gave me, if Nick was going to get a $2 raise on the carts, I got a $10 raise on the carts. and was making, probably it was $18, $20 for an 18-hole cart and 10 for a nut. And I had to give him only 35%. You know what I mean? So I was killing it. You know what I mean? I was making,
Right.
and then I said to the guy, so I get the job and I drive out to the Bruce at the time. And I know you've been up to the place, but right off the driving range, they had like 4 or 5 spots and 2 spots in teaching, and they were caved in. The caved in mats. So I said, Frank, look, I'm going to need a strip. What was it, 75 yards? I pasted off. I need a strip of asphalt in here. And I go, what's that puddle? What's that puddle? He goes, well, that's the drainage, and that's what happens. I go, hey, Frank, we don't have any off days. The driving range is open when we're open. If the course is open, the driving range is open. I said, we got to get some drainage. He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, you put some drainage in there. You put a drain here, you put a drain. So he had a guy, because now it was January 23rd, and I had to go to the PGA show. It was like, wow, so I went to the PGA show. I flew back up in the first week of February, and the guy's over there pulling up the range, and they're getting the asphalt ready, and they put an asphalt mat in, and I put in 12 mats, and my brother built platforms, and then I got it up to 15 mats, and then they never took any money. And then in typical town, well, I probably shouldn't say this there, but it doesn't matter. I'm retired. They gave me my first contract, Leo, January 23rd. It's a 5-year deal, 1990 to December 31st, 1995. So that's 6 years. So I didn't say anything. I signed the contract. 2 years into the contract, I said to my boss, Frank, who we got very friendly, and I won the pro president with him. Oh, he was loving things. And I said, hey, Frank, this is a 6-year contract. I go, look, in good faith, if you want to change it to, he goes, Joe, he goes, let him, you're doing a great job here and you're making money. That's great. And it rained the whole month of April when I first got the job, and I didn't have any money. I exhausted the money I saved. I probably saved like 80 grand, and I exhausted that on just crap that I had to buy. Those days you had to pay in 30 days. You know what I mean? It was just, it was craziness. There was no real terms, and then I got terms in, and then Billy put me on the board, and I got very involved with National, and I went to more than 20 straight years of annual meetings. And, my voice was heard. They all liked me. They put me on a couple of national committees, and my forte was junior golf. And they liked me on the junior golf committee, and I traveled, all over the place. And then I became the first public course president in the Met PGA in 2010. I think 2010 to 2011. Sometimes I get those mixed up because they had me in for 3 years, but I only did 2. So, and I enjoyed that immensely. 2 years later, I 19 whatever it was, for 2021, whatever it was, 17, 16, in that range. I said to the guys, I go, look, no one can talk me out of this, but I'm signing a contract to end my employment at 65. I said, I'm going to get my Social Security at 66 and a half. I got some money saved up. I said, I'm going to go to Florida, and I'm going to stay down there. 2 years ago, I stayed down there 5 months, and this year I stayed 6 months. So, I'm going to try to stay 6 months every time. And then I like, I like doing it. And then I had an unfortunate fall in last September, and I wound up in ICU for 6 days, and I couldn't talk, and I couldn't move my hand for 3 of those days. And I just kind of said to myself, my life's going by, and I haven't been with my brother and the grandkids and his kids, and his kids, only my nephew Joe talks to me, and no one talks to me, and they used to always talk to me, but I'm not there for their kids, and I went to 3 birthday parties, and you know what it's like. I mean, you're down in Florida for a while now, and if if your brother's kid made a graduation, you're not going to it because you're not flying. Like you miss people. They don't even know who you look like and who you are. So I decided I'm
Right.
going to spend some time with him and going to spend some time with Ronnie, in Mobile and live my life. And that's like last week I played 4 times. I played on a Saturday, which I haven't played on a Saturday at the Griff for 30, 25 years. You know what I mean? Like, I just never played during on the weekends because I was making money, so I didn't want to give
Feels
up
strange,
teaching.
doesn't it?
No, it is strange. And I don't really mind the relaxing. Like today I had a couple of things to do. I've got 2 more doctor's appointments, just to go to. I got all clear for a CAT scan, so that was all good. And I'm just going up to follow up with the other guy and just an eye doctor, and then I'm done with the doctors, and just see. I got courses to play and some people to play with, and a friend of mine, Gary Murphy, from Innis Arden, he retired also unexpectedly, but anyway, he wants to play, and he got a membership at Innis Arden, and we'll play there a few times. I just don't want to, and I'm starting to get my game. I think I play with you a couple of holes, and I'm starting to play a little bit like the old Joe Felder. Not yesterday when I putted like a blind man, but that's another story. But anyway, but that's kind of my career.
So Joe, you mentioned Larry Fury. Larry Fury went to St. John the Baptist on Long Island?
Yes, he did.
Wow. I didn't know that. Larry, for those of you that don't know, Larry Fury's a PGA member and a pretty good player too.
So I'll tell you one more story. Last 2 years ago, the year that it had to be more than that, when Tom Brady retired from the New England Patriots and was going to sign for Tampa. Okay, the year he signed with Tampa, whatever that year was, I was on the driving range. Now Jimmy Dunn, who was one of the top dogs at Sandler O'Neill, and the World Trade Center went down. They went down, and his life was spared because the other partner told him to go play in a golf tournament, and he did, and his life was spared. So anyway, Jimmy Dunn has always been a friend, and maybe a few years before that, we had played with Ronnie over at Seminole, and afterwards, Jimmy says, "Man, you are such a good chipper. You got to teach me. My chipping stinks." So I gave him a chipping lesson right before the AT&T, and he came in second with Phil Mickelson. That AT&T, and he loved me, So he calls me up. He calls me up to. He knew I was playing at 9:00, with one of his best friends and 2 women, which don't really play on Sundays, but they were playing. And long story short, Jimmy's on the range, and I'm giving him a lesson, blah blah blah, and who shows up is Rory McIlroy and Tom Brady. So Tom walks up, and Jimmy Dunn says, "Hey, Tom, I want you to meet a friend of mine, Joe Felder. He's the pro in Greenwich." So I shake Tom's hand. I go, "Tom, until you go somewhere else, you're going to be a member at my place first before you go to Stanwich, because you're going to have to wait a little while, and you could play my place." "Oh, great, Joe. Good." He goes, "I'm going to have another pro, blah, blah," and he liked me. So then he goes to Rory, and he says, "Rory, Joe and I won the high school state championship, and the Catholic school state championship." And he goes,
Jimmy Dunn and you.
Jimmy Dunn and me. He goes, so Rory puts out his hand. He goes, "Hey, Joe, you must have been a really good player." And Jimmy was the number 1 man. So then I go, "Rory, I gave Jimmy a good lesson today. Watch out. He's going to play hard." He goes, "Joe, I don't think you want any side action on that." So at lunch, Jimmy Dunn holds up $200 bills and goes, "Joe, look what we got from Rory." He goes, "I've never gotten any money from him. Thank you, Joe." So Rory goes, "Hey, you did a good job with him." I said, "Well, if you need a hand, Rory, maybe I'll help you too." So anyway, that was a funny one. So I like that story.
So Joe, what I'm hearing out of all this, the golf business has changed a lot in the past 20 or 30 years.
Oh,
You
tremendously.
you put a lot of hours in and worked really hard to get where you are today. Where
Yeah.
today they don't put in the hours that you put in. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, I know you know, my assistant has taken off more weekends than I took off in 30 years, you know what I mean, in 1 year. It's a crazy business. It's all changed, you know. I mean, you look at the guys in Florida, they have Sundays off, you know. They have Sundays off, you know. Did Mason have Sundays off or
Yes, yes. Well, in
so that's
Florida,
it.
at some clubs, a little different. Some clubs is a 12-month job. You know, they're going strong 12 months out of the year in Florida at some clubs.
Uh-huh. But they don't get time off. They don't get a month off or something or what?
Uh, at at the clubs I've been at, you get 4 weeks off for the whole year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because whatchamacallit, one of the guys, I forget who it was. Oh, the Tequesta guy was telling us that he's getting 3 weeks off in either the end of June and then another 3.5 weeks off in August. They're doing tees and they're leveling tees and they're closing down the golf course. And so he's getting 7 weeks plus whatever he usually gets. So that's pretty good.
Right. So
I mean,
I asked Chat GPT what three traits would a great director of golf have to progress in the industry? And Chat GPT said strong work ethic, excellent communication skills, and a strong passion for golf. And I think
well,
you checked all the boxes, Joe.
hey, thank you, Leo. That's it. That's like I work hard, I play hard. You know what I mean? We've always worked hard and played hard. So, I'm trying to get into the competitiveness of golf again, and I played awful. I didn't play awful. I just played. I won't mention the golf course, but it's one of the worst golf courses I ever played. And these greens were out of control, out of control. I mean, undulations were crazy, and they were hard as a rock, and I mean, it was just no fun. You know what I mean? I had three putts, like 5 3 putts and 2 4 putt. And you know me, I'm a pretty good putter. But whatever, it is
Joe,
what it is. That's
what made Billy Mitchell such a great golf professional?
He cared about everybody, and he showed it. He showed he cared. He remembered names. It was unbelievable how he remembered names. It was crazy. I don't know if you
Right.
went to the seminar. I mean, you were probably working at Nassau uh, when we had the guy that was had the memory guy. He was a memory expert, and I remember it as clear as day. In the beginning of the session, everybody was getting coffee and bagels and stuff like that, and Billy was getting all his donuts in a plate. And he saw that Billy had stacked up 4 donuts in his plate, and he comes walking over to us. We put it down he was at the dais table and I was at my other table. And he comes up to us. He goes, "Hey, I'm so and so." He goes, "What's your name?" He goes, "William A. Mitchell." And he gives him the claw grip and he goes, "What's your name?" And I go, "Joe." And I go, "My name's Joe Felder." And he goes, "Okay." So now it's a break for lunch, and he was going to be the afternoon speaker. So he goes, "Okay, blah blah blah." When it gets started, he goes, "Look, if I shook your hand today, please stand up." And 30 of us, 25 of us stood up, and he goes, "Joe Felder, please sit down. Joe Felder, please sit down." Right, and everybody's getting to sit down, and there's one guy standing, and it's Billy. He goes, "William A. Mitchell." He goes, he goes, he goes, "I'll never forget that as long as I live." And then, he told us how to remember names and stuff like that. And that's how I was very good with remembering names. Like when you were at Aberdeen, it was maybe 2 years before that when I set the course record. I think it was 65 or something, or 64. I shot at Aberdeen in the pro member. And the guy shows up, when you were there. So well, you had me do a clinic there 1 year, I think. Remember that? And then I did a clinic with Jim, the other pro, and then I remember the guy's name. He goes, "How did you remember my name, yo?" And I go, "I don't know." I said, just had a name. He had a face I couldn't forget." I told him.
So what made Charlie Robson such a great executive director of the Met PGA?
It was hard to fool him, and he always put the PGA first and himself second. And I mean, you talk about a work ethic. I mean, he would drive home from the Atlantic City Pro-Am and drive back just to be with his wife, 6-hour drive back and forth. And he went home for 5, 6, 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it was.
Right.
So, he just, I stood up and I said in that article, I bleed blue and gold. I mean, you and I have our differences about the PGA, but for me, it changed my life, and it made me make some money and be the guy that I am. So, you look at it a million different ways, and I'm not going to argue with anybody about whatever their views are. Everybody has a view, it's just,
Right.
everybody has a mouth, and you think it might be bad, and I think it might be good. Like there's two ways, That's why. And
Yeah,
Billy, one
I
of
love
Billy's. Go ahead.
I love the Met PGA. I love Charlie Robson and all the guys there. It was a great part of my life being associated with the Metropolitan PGA and all the golf professionals up there.
Yeah, like Billy Mitchell, one of his favorite phrases are, "Do you know why Ford doesn't make only white cars? Because people want other colors." Like he goes, and I've used his lines and all the time. And when he passed away, when the Facebook thing came out, I don't even know when I started doing it, but I'd give a little paragraph on the 100-Day War, and I got 100 and something likes and comments. They look forward to what I'm going to say, even though I'm not fighting the war. What am I going to say this year? So it's it's good. And I got interviewed for an alumni issue, so it's kind of funny that you're doing this for me, this podcast. And you never know. I don't I don't want to go into a teaching thing full time, but I'd still like to be involved. And I'm pretty good teaching kids, and I've gotten 4 people as PGA members, and playing the mini tours, and and you name it. I've got more scholarships for kids than you could, probably got 40, 30, 40 scholarships, and
That's
guys,
good stuff.
Kids started with me. Megan Franchella was in my first junior clinic with Pat Massey. Now she's 37, 38 years old. Like, think about that.
So if you had to pass on one bit of advice to somebody, let's say a 25-year-old guy or woman starting out in the golf industry, what would that advice be?
Well, I'm stealing a line, but the customer is always right, And if you don't think that is, look at step 2, and the customer is always right. You know what I mean? You've got to treat them. You just got to treat the people with respect. If you give her respect, they're going to give you respect. And I'm a little nuts, as you know, and I'm not afraid to speak up and shout at the first tee. And I'd sit there and I started clapping. "Hey, there you go, nice shot, Leo! Yeah, we hit it!" And then it makes their whole day. And I go, and I would yell out, "Club by Ping, swing by Joe Felder." If they hit a good drive.
Are there any of the kids that you taught? Any of the kids you taught you still keep in touch with?
Yeah, the Pastor brothers. I see them in Florida a lot. At Abacoa. The Danny Geist. This is a kid right now. He's qualified for 2 PGA Tour events and 1 Corn Ferry event. Monday qualifying. So that's pretty good. He hasn't made a cut yet, but I've talked to him when he comes into town, and one guy, Jared Aglowski, he would have been a great PGA pro because he had the look, he had the game. He hit it 300 yards, and he just he reminds me of a friend of ours that he just had a hard time with the chipping part. You know what I mean? But
Right.
but he just I would beat him and I have him pick a club. You know what I mean? Whatever club you want me to hit, I'll hit into the green. You know what I mean? And within 3 clubs, because we learned to hit shots as kids. So we
So Joe, in closing, what I got out of all this, you make it look easy, but there's a lot of hours and a lot of work that goes behind this. It's not easy. And you put in the hours and you did the work, and you made it look fun, and you were a good role model for a lot of golf professionals. And on behalf of all that have met PGA pros, thank you for everything you did for us.
Oh, you're welcome, Leo. Thank you. And the sign on my doors forever for 32 years said, "Fun starts in your golf shop."
There you go. Good line to close on. Have
Thank
a good
you,
night,
Leo.
Joe, and thanks for coming on.
Okay, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.